good to be back in the house of the Lord this morning. Hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Didn't eat a whole lot. Left dessert out. And I don't see no. Yeah, I see grins. Boy, I tell you, the Lord's been good to us. We probably threw out more food that people would love to have, wouldn't they? I tell you, God's been good to us. He's been good to us. We're in Job, chapter 17. And I'm going to back up a couple verses because I went a little bit quick on at the end of 16 last week. Now, there are a couple points that's real good in chapter 16, but this is Job's response to Eliphaz, which is that was his second round two, I guess inning number 2 for Eliphaz, but this is Job's response in 16 and 17. And here I'm just going to back up to verse 20 in chapter 16. It says, "My friends scorn me, but mine eye poureth out tears unto God." You know, his friends, so-called friends, they scorned him. But you know where Job said his tears was going? To God. His tears was to God. Said, "Oh, that one might plead for a man with God as a man pleadeth for his neighbor." I love that verse. Thank God for Jesus. You know, that has been fulfilled, that they are someone that pleads for us. And that's Jesus Christ. He's on our side. Job needed Jesus, didn't he? But you know, he was looking, all that we find in Job is looking forward. He's looking forward for an advocate. And you know what? That was God's plan. And that's so amazing that the book of Job and all that we pull out and see, oh, that one might plead for a man with God. You know, that's God's plan, that Jesus would come and bring him back united with God. It's just amazing that it is in here. Said, "When a few years are come, then I shall go the way whence I shall not return." Said, "My breath," and you know, it just keeps going. You know, they put chapters in here, but you could tell that Job's just one book. You could just read it completely, just straight on through there. It says, "My breath is corrupt, my days are extinct, the graves are ready for me." You know, I thought he didn't have toothpaste, he didn't have mouthwash that we have, or mints or gum to chew on. But you know, he said, "My breath is corrupt." Why? Because this disease that Satan put on Job was so, you know, even his insides. You know, God said that you cannot take his life, but you can do anything else to his body. So, you know, I think all the, just he was rotting in the inside, even made his breath. You know, when you're sick, when you have a cold or something, your breath gets a little bad, don't it? We know that. But look, that's what that meant. I mean, he had, his breath was bad. Why? Because he was dying. You know, such a disease that Satan put on Job here. I mean, so much suffering. But my breath is corrupt. My days are extinct. What extinct? They're that. I mean, they're just like they're gone. Extinct. The graves are ready for me. Are there not mockers with me? Now he's calling his friends. They're mocking. All they are is mockers. First up here he said they scorned me. My friends scorned me. Here in this verse he's calling them mockers with me. And doth mine eye continue in their provocation. That provocation, I don't know exactly what that means. Tracy will have to help me on that one. But that's a big word. And doth mine eye continue in their provocation. So you'll look that one up and we'll see what the meaning of that is. It says, "Lay down now, put me in a surety with thee. Who is he that will strike hands with me?" Who will agree with me? Yeah, who will agree with me? All right. Here we go. Provocation means.
From the King James Version dictionary. I always try to look there.
Yes.
Instead of like Webster, because that changes.
That's right. That's right.
They change theirs. Provocation, anything that excites anger, the cause of resentment.
Okay. Anything that excites anger. If you put that in there, and doth mine eye continue in their what? They're exciting his anger. You know, all them friends were doing was what? Pushing his button. Provoking. Yeah, that's it. Provoking. That's it. Yeah, provoking him. And you know, that's one thing about Job, and which we'll get, I'm sort of jumping ahead of myself, but on one of these verses. But, you know, Job he tells them, you know, won't you be quiet or hold your tongue? Then they tell him the same thing. You know what would have been best? Both of them not even said nothing, right? Job not said nothing, even friends. They should have sat like 7 days and just sat there and stared at each other. Be better off, wouldn't it? Because when they started speaking is what happened. Is Job, he just, you know, he says stuff that he shouldn't have said. The friends are saying things that they shouldn't say. And you know, now we're in where we're at here. But it says, lay down now, put me in a surety. He's wanting a pledge here, a surety with thee. Who is he that will strike hands with me? Who's going to be on my side? Who's going to shake my hand? For thou hast hid their heart from understanding. Therefore shalt thou not exalt them. Now he's talking to God here. He says, for thou hast hid their heart from understanding. Therefore shalt thou not exalt them. He that speaketh flattery to his friends, even the eyes of his children shall fail. He hath made me also a byword of the people, and aforetime I was as a tabret. You know what he's saying there? He said, before, my word, I mean, people listened. He had clout, sort of, you know, they'd listen to him. But look what, he hath made me also a byword of the people. What are they doing now? They're hissing at him. Said, Job, you know, putting him down. Here he is at the corner of an ash pile in the heaps of the city outside. Before his word, you know, they listened to him. Now they're not. It says, mine eye also is dim by reason of sorrow. You know, his eyes were dim. He's losing his eyesight. You know, old Satan was taking everything from Job. I mean, just piece by piece, you could see everything. He was suffering in so many ways. Said, by reason of sorrow, and all my members are as a shadow. His body just felt like it was just shrinking to a shadow. Said, upright men shall be astonished at this, and the innocent shall stir up himself against a hypocrite. The righteous also shall hold on his way, and he that hath clean hands shall be stronger and stronger. See, those words there, Job, he's maintaining his innocence. They're calling him a hypocrite. He's saying, I'm righteous. I didn't all this, just back and forth, back and forth. But as for you all, do ye return and come now, for I cannot find one wise man among you. He said, I can't find a wise man among you. Says, my days are past. Now here Job's saying, my days are past, my purposes are broken off, even the thoughts of my heart. They change the night into day. The light is short because of darkness. The light is short. His days are getting shorter. The nights are getting longer. He's saying, my days are past. What it is, he's just about lost hope. And we're going to see that here. Said, if I wait, the grave is mine house. I have made my bed in the darkness. I have said to corruption, thou art my father. To the worm, thou art my mother and my sister. You know what was closer than his mother and the father? Right now, he felt like corruption and the worms, the grave. The grave. That was a sign of what the grave, that's death. Death is how could you put it? It's a thing we don't look forward to, right? And death is not very pleasant. But thank God Jesus took the sting of death, and all we go is through the shadow of death, right? Now in Job's time here, he didn't have we're going to find out. He looked for a redeemer. We'll see that. I don't think we'll get to that for sure. But it says, corruption and the worm, thou art my mother, my father, closer, and my sister. And where is now my hope? Now you say, where's my hope? As for my hope, who shall see it? He's got hope, but he ain't got hope. You know what I'm saying? He's right at the verge of his hope is sort of gone. They shall go down to the bars of the pit when are rest together as is in the what? The dust. Job, right here, he's just, his hope, he knows death is pretty sure. Here at the end, I thought of this. At the end of chapter 22, he says a few years. Now at the end of this chapter, just chapter later, now he's saying he's just almost a foot right there, So Job is he's bouncing back and forth. It's Satan's on him and all this disease, and it's just taking a number on him. But he knows that it's close. And now, here in chapter 18, Bildad, he has his second speaking to Job, said, Then answered Bildad the Shuhite and said, How long will it be ere you make an end of words? Mark, and afterward we will speak. He's saying, how long are you going to just keep rattling on? How long are you going to keep? That's what I said. Yeah. Said, how long will you be ere make an end of the words? Mark, and afterward we will speak. Wherefore are we counted as beasts and reputed vile in thy sight? And this reputed is regarded. Regarded vile in your sight. It's almost changed. They were friends. In this language here, Bildad's language, it's almost like they've lost friendship, hasn't they? He says, you counted me as beast. You're regarding me as stupid, or we're stupid. We're just animals. We're dumb. We have no wisdom. And it just on and on and on and on. And then they're just saying, he's just saying, here, he tireth himself in his anger. Shall the earth be forsaken for thee? And shall the rock be removed out of his place? You know what he's saying here? He's saying, is it your word that's going to, is it you, Job, that's going to, everything you're saying is right. You're right. And you're going, and here's one thing they had trouble with. And we're going, in so many words and hidden around in this is what you see. What they had trouble with was they held that if something like's happened to Job, you had big sin. You sinned against God. That's what they held to. And now they're saying here that shall the earth be shaken for thee. Should everything that's supposed to be changed just because you're saying you're righteous and you didn't do nothing, you didn't deserve all this? See what I'm saying? So you're going to change everything. Everything's went this way all along. Then here comes Job, and say just because, you're holding on, you won't confess. See, they're trying to push his button. Said, you confess. You're hiding something. They keep pushing their finger, pushing button. People pushes your button long enough, you're going to explode. And that's what happened to Job here. He explodes. And he explodes not only against his friends, but against God too. He says things that he shouldn't even said. And you know what? God will get the last word. We'll see that at the end of the book, because he does come back and he reproves Job of things that he said, and we'll see that. But here he said, yea, the light of the wicked. Now here he starts in verse 5, and he starts speaking of the woes of the wicked. And if you listen, and I'm going to point out a few little things, he's pointing them to Job. He's pointing them to Job. And actually, he shouldn't have said a couple of these things. He even talks about his children, and we're going to see that. It says, yea, the light of the wicked. And a lot of these words, they're true. Now listen at it. These are true sayings. The light of the wicked shall be put out. But in Job's case, it wasn't true. See what I'm saying? He's pointing the wickedness to Job. Job was God's servant. Satan's the one doing it to, we know the story, but they didn't. Okay? But yea, the light of the wicked shall be put out, and the spark of his fire shall not shine. The light shall be dark in his tabernacle, and his candle shall be put out within. The steps of his strength shall be straitened, and his own counsel shall cast him down. So his steps shall be shortened, that straight and shortened, and his own counsel shall cast him down. For he is cast into a net by his own feet, and he walketh upon a snare. Now, if you look, you got a lot of these in the next three couple of verses here. You got a net, you got a snare, you got a gin. A gin is a type of a snare. All these are traps. And then you got a snare and a trap in verse 10. All them in those three verses, you know what that is? That's Satan. You know, Satan, that's what he puts out there to try to what? That we would not accept Christ's righteousness, right? That we would be wicked. You know, you know what Satan wants us to do? He wants us to be like him, wicked. I don't want to be wicked. I want to be loving, kind, like Christ, right? Boy, when wickedness comes, wickedness is what? It's ugly. Yeah, and you look at what Bildad says here, it's true. Wickedness will not pay. It will not pay. But it said, for he shall cast into the net by his own feet, he walketh upon a snare, the gin shall take him by the heel, and the robber shall prevail against him. We're in Job chapter 18, verse 9. I know a couple of you just come in there. Job 18, verse 9. Said that the snare is laid for him in the ground, and a trap for him in the way. You know, that's all Satan does, as our steps. In the way, he throws snares, traps, gins, wanting to catch us in wickedness. That's all he wants us to do. He wants to tear us down. Terrors shall make him afraid on every side, and shall drive him to his feet. His strength shall be hunger bitten, and destruction shall be ready at his side. You know, his strength will be hunger bitten. You know, he's looking at Job, and look at the shape Job is in. He's hunger bitten, ain't he? Really. And the destruction shall be at his side. He could see Job, how he's went down. Said, it shall devour the strength of his skin. And listen to this. Even the firstborn of death shall devour his strength. See, he's looking at Job's skin, shriveled, and he had to scrape it. All this is sort of pointing to him for the wickedness. And it says, his confidence shall be rooted out of his tabernacle, and it shall bring him to the king of terrors. It shall dwell in his tabernacle, because it is none of his. Brimstone shall be scattered upon his habitation. You know, when he said brimstone, you know what he's looking back at? Remember when fire fell from heaven and took Job's sheep and stuff? That's what he was alluding to. See, just cause your wickedness, this destruction, said brimstone shall be scattered upon his habitation. His roots shall be dried up beneath, and above shall his branch be cut off. His roots. You know, he sort of answered. Remember when we said we cut down a tree and their little green buds? He said, remember, we'll sprout out of that root. You know what Bildad saying the wicked will? When you cut down a tree, the roots die, and then there'll be no green come up out of that tree, right? If you kill that's why they make that stuff you put on a tree when you have a root killer or something. You can put something on that tree when you cut it. Yeah, they make something you can put on that. And you know what that does? It kills the root. And when the root's dead, then it won't spring up. And that's what he's saying here. His roots shall be dried up beneath, and above shall his branch be cut off. His remembrance shall perish from the earth, and he shall have no name in the street. You know, the wicked, you don't hear of them, do you? After they could do the wickedness in the earth, and you just don't. We always say Hitler, right? What he done. But Hitler's name's not out there, right? I mean, really. I mean, the wicked, I mean, his name's is gone. Yeah, when you think of it, when you say a name like that, you think of what? Wickedness, right? You think of the wicked, the people. His remembrance shall perish from the earth. But you know what? Good people, their name goes on. The good that they've done in the earth, when they depart, their name goes on. You know, I know my dad, he was a good man. He preached the gospel. And every once in a while, there'll be somebody come in at work. They say, "You're a Woodrum, ain't you?" And you know who they think of? Dad. They think of Dad. You know, that's what I'm saying. A good name will go even after you're gone. But now, if Dad was not what he was, if he was wicked and done bad, you don't think they wouldn't even acknowledge you ain't. You know what I'm saying? You see the difference there? If a wicked, then your name is just nothing. But if you do good, people's going to remember that, right? And not just because he's my dad, but he was a good dad. I'm sure your dad, you probably same way, same examples. You might be out and I remember, and you see what I'm saying? And your family, I could just point to every one of you. The good people in your family, people remembers that. But the wicked, what happens? You don't bring that up, right? Don't bring that down. The remembrance shall perish from the earth. And he shall have no name in the street. He shall be driven from light into darkness and chased out of the world. He shall neither have son nor nephew among his people, nor any remaining in his dwelling. See that verse there? See, he lost all his sons and daughters. So he even included, he says he shall have not only have sons, but he ain't going to have no nephews. Talking about you lost all your kids, because you're wicked. Bill Dad really put that in that verse there. Said, nor any remaining in his dwelling. They that come after him shall be astonished at his day, as they that went before were affrighted. Surely such are the dwellings of the wicked, and this is the place of him, now listen to this, that knoweth not God. Man, Bill Dad, he's saying, Job, you don't even know God. All that was pointed to him. He said, you lost your children, all this wickedness, and the wicked, and he's pointing it right to Job, and said, surely such are the dwellings of the wicked, and this is the place of him that what? Knoweth not God. Now the wicked, they know not God, right? But Job knew God. Job knew God. God knew Job, right? We know that. They didn't know that. He's pointing and said, because of your wickedness, this is the place of him that knoweth not God. That you don't know God. That was some harsh words right there by Bildad. And here we find in chapter 19, I don't know how much we'll get through here, but chapter 19 starts, Job speaks. Yeah, now he's coming back. Here Eliphaz has spoke twice. Here Bildad has spoke twice. Here Job answers Bildad. Then Job answered and said, here's Job. How long will you vex my soul and break me in pieces with words? My goodness. I can't see that. They're back and forth, and all. He said, you're vexing my soul. Just tearing me to pieces. We don't know when to leave well enough alone, do we? Sometimes. Really. Sometimes we might. I hope we don't. I hope we're not nowhere near would tire somebody and just keep tearing them up by words we say. That there are people out there that really gets into this. Really, they love to vex you. To see how far they can push you. That's exactly. And you know what? That's wickedness. That's wickedness. And I know we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. None of us would want to do that. But he said, how long will you vex my soul and break me in pieces with words? Says, these 10 times have you reproached me. Ye are not ashamed. that ye make yourselves strange to me. They ain't even got no shame on their face. They're vexing him. They're saying all that they're saying, calling him wicked, a hypocrite, and all this. And here's one thing, this 10 times. I know it's not been 10 times yet, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I think it's only, if you count, it's like 8 or 9, but it wasn't 10. But 10 is just a complete number. Said, these 10 times have you reproached me. Ye are not ashamed that ye make yourselves strange to me. And be it indeed that I have erred, mine error remaineth with myself. He said, be it indeed that I have erred. I have. Job admits he sinned, right? He's erred. But mine error, what? Remaineth with myself. When we sin, I know it affects others. But when it's sin, we know within ourselves, don't we? Job said, if I've erred, I know it. I carry it within myself. But he says, excuse me. But these, I thought, one thing, say if you have x equals 5, right? You're doing some kind of math problem. X equals 5. Okay, you start that problem out. Instead of having x equal 5, you put x equal 10. Guess what you're going to get at the end of it? The wrong answer, right? I thought these friends had the same way. They started with the wrong solution. Things they said was good, right? But they started with the wrong number. That's the way we are sometimes. We might think, well, that's happened because of this. You know what I'm saying? But we've started looking the wrong way. You know what I mean? Sometimes we might put 1 and 1 together and might equal 2. Sometimes we put 1 and 1 together and it's 5. Why? We didn't start looking the right way. And they didn't either. They did not start looking at Job the right way. Instead of helping him and have pity on him, what did they do? They vexed him. And that same way we should be like that. I mean, we shouldn't be like that. We should be opposite of that. We should have pity. We should feel sorry for people. We should help them somehow, not make them worse by making them mad. Yeah, you can tell that's what it's done here. Actually, it's and it says, if indeed ye will magnify yourselves against me and plead against me my reproach, reproach, humiliation. That's another word. And plead against me for my reproach. Humiliated. Know now that God hath overthrown me and hath compassed me with his net. I thought of this, and he does this a lot. He blames God, right? Nowhere in here do we see Job blaming Satan. Have you ever thought of that? Ain't nowhere. Nowhere. He always says God's done this and this and this and this. He never blamed Satan in Scripture. He never says Satan done this, Satan done that. It's always God. And I thought of that.
Even his friends realize the power that Satan has.
Yes.
In people's lives. They don't even see that. They see it as all God. It's all God. And yes, he is all powerful, but there is things Satan does, and
right.
He uses the tongue especially.
Right. That's right. But and that's true. But one thing about his friends are looking at Job, and a lot of this stuff Job's saying about God, doing this, that sort of made them feel, hey, you're speaking against the Almighty, the Creator. But then again, you do it the other way. Remember one chapter before, Job praised God. Was putting him that he's exalted and all that, and putting him where, God is high indeed, but still, as it goes down through here, and we'll get to, I think after 20, we find where Job changes. He never quotes like God done this. God, he changes his tune for some reason. He changes it. We'll see that. But says, yeah. Well,
Him talking about him and God, and neither one, just things happen. Is what he's finally saying. Everything was happening.
Right. That's right. Know now that God hath overthrown me and hath compassed me with his net, like God was the one that snared him and catched him, but really it's what? Satan. Behold, I cry out of wrong, but I am not heard. I cry aloud, but there is no judgment. He knew that he was, what did I do to deserve this? I could sort of think what Job's thinking. And he's crying out to God, what have I done? And sometimes things happen to us and we cry out to God and we think it don't, but you know what? We should be, a lot of it we need to direct to the cause of it, right? Satan, get behind me. You're the one done this. God help me. And that's what he said. Behold, I cry out of wrong, but I'm not heard. It's like God didn't hear him. God always hears. But see, God, sometimes he don't immediately answer. Sometimes he does. Sometimes it's immediate. I've seen things when we pray, immediately. But then some things, it might be 6 months down the road. You know what I mean? An hour or a year or something. We've seen that. See,
that's our problem. Is we don't have the patience.
Right.
Yeah, we wanted to do something now.
We cry out to God, and sometimes it feels like He don't hear our prayer. When He did hear it, He's just not ready to answer yet.
Yes.
And we can't process that
Right.
like God can. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because we're mortal. We're human.
That's it. Right. Right.
And sometimes the answer is no, but we don't know it's no quite at that moment.
Right.
So we're still in limbo, kind of wondering, are you going to answer my prayer? And then you find out, oh, well, I guess it was a no.
No.
After all.
Yeah.
Something will happen or whatever. But we just don't have the patience.
Right.
We want to know. We want our answers now. And I think that's more or less what he's kind of referring to here.
Sure.
He's crying out to God. Even when he comes out loud, using his tongue, using his voice, crying out to God.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still got covered in these bulls. He's still laying in this heap of whatever mess that he's in.
That's right. For
He's
months.
still there. He's crying out, God, please get me out of this.
Yeah.
And he's still there, wondering what's going on.
Yeah. That's why it said, but there's no judgment. Judgment one way or the other, right? Said, he hath fenced up my way that I cannot pass, and he has set darkness in my paths. So he fenced him up that he could not pass. He's put bounds. He's saying, God, you put bounds. I can't go. Said, he has stripped me of my glory and had taken the crown from my head. Now, he's blaming God for this. Before this happened, what was he? He's a prominent man. He was a rich man. He had a lot of prosperity. And not only that, he helped people. We've seen that. Because his friends come and said, hey, you done this for them and that. He was a good, godly man. What did he do? He made sacrifices for all his kids. Remember, if they'd done wrong. Job was a good character man, right? But he's blaming God that he stripped me of what? My glory. Here I sat up on a heap dump, ash dump. And it said, and taken the crown, what? From my head. He hath destroyed me on every side, and I'm gone, and mine hope hath he removed like a tree. He hath also kindled his wrath against me, and he counteth me unto him as one of his enemies. God would not do that. See what I'm saying? Job says stuff that he would not say any other time. You know what I'm saying? We wouldn't. Man, God, he don't count us as his enemy. He loves us. He loves all. He loves the whole world. And he told us to what? Love his enemy. So you can see a few things in here that Job says against God. And he shouldn't have said them, right? And God's going to point that out.
Because they based everything on how they prospered.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not God left them or not, it was according to their prosperity.
Right, right. And you know, a couple more verses. His troops come together and raise up their way against me and encamp round about my tabernacle. My tabernacle, his tent. He hath put my brethren far from me, and mine acquaintance are verily estranged from me. You know what he said? His family wouldn't have nothing to do with him. That's what now he's even going to name some more. But his brethren, that means he had brothers probably, and his brothers had nothing to do with him. And mine acquaintance are very estranged from me. Said, my kinfolk have failed, and my familiar friends have forgotten me. That means he was so, they all was against him. You know, said, they that dwell in mine house, his own house. You know, I thought of this. What was destroyed? Everything of Job's. But you know one thing that Satan kept? For one thing, his wife, right? Not only his wife, his house. He didn't destroy his house. And some of his maids and things in his home. And you know what? Didn't realize that until this verse. Actually, that actually was, well, we knew his wife was saved, but we didn't know that Job's home was not destroyed with everything else that he had. His home was still here. But listen what it said. Said, they that dwell in mine house and my maids count me for a stranger. I'm an alien in their sight. So his maids, his servants in his home, said, I called my servant and he gave me no answer. He called for servant. They wouldn't even come out. It's just like they just, you know, who are you? I entreated him with my mouth. My breath is strange to what? My wife. Even his wife. You know, his wife said, curse God and die. You know, there are different ways of looking at that. You know, for one way we thought, well, maybe she loved him and didn't want him to see him like that. You know, didn't want to see him suffer. You know what I'm saying? That's one way of looking at it. But another way, she resented him. Wanted him to curse God and die. Because look at this verse. Said, my breath is strange to my wife.
She didn't want him.
Yeah, she lost all of her children. She blamed, you know, maybe just like these three friends blaming Job for something he done wicked, maybe she was blaming him that all this had happened to him. See what I'm saying? So there are sort of two ways of looking at that. Don't know. But in that verse, it sort of hints that she didn't want nothing to do with him. I mean, the kindred, nothing. Nobody wanted nothing to do with him. Said, I entreated him with my mouth. No, right on down here. Here, my breath is strange to my wife, though I entreated for the children's sake of my own body. See, he begged. I think he tried to comfort her because of the children that was taken or something, but she just wouldn't. She wouldn't accept it. And you know that would be tough, right? That would be tough. But he tried. He said, I entreated for the children's sake of my own body. Yea, young children despise me. I arose and they spake against me. Remember the little children, who was it, Elisha or Elijah? One of them, they come out and called him a bald man, and bears come down. You know, hey, that same way here. What they do? They despised him. Children was probably making fun of him. Look at Joe. You know how little kids, they don't know what's going on anyway, but what did they do? They despised him. They remembered Job, and then they see him at the outskirts of the city, and he's down in these ashes. It's hard to tell. I mean, them little kids might have come by and threw rocks at him. You know, who knows? I mean, I just added that in there, but you know that they didn't care. They despised him. Said, all my inward friends abhorred me. That means hated him. All his inward friends. I mean, his inward, those close to him, they hated him. And they whom I loved are turned against me. Not only did Satan attack his body, and we see he described all that he went through, but not only that, attacked his family. You know one thing? That's what Satan, he wants. He don't want us to have any relationships with our families. He wants to. That's why I think this pandemic, it's from Satan. I mean, it is. It's from Satan. It's killing our family. If our families wasn't already squashed, he's squashing them even more. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's from Satan. I mean, it really is. I mean, and I pray that.
Yesterday that suicide is outrunning COVID deaths.
Yes, yes.
Suicide is that bad.
Yeah. And you know, I feel for the kids. They can't have school. They can't have no normality. They can't have friends. I mean, think of that. I mean, here we're in Job and we're looking, and I just read these verses, and it just reminded me of where we're at right now. And you know, who brought this up? He's sort of blaming God. And you know what? People blames God. They shouldn't blame God. Blame the right one. That's Satan.
He allows things to happen, but
Yeah. He don't bring it. He don't bring evil, and he's not our enemy. I thought Job said he's my enemy. I didn't like that verse. Why? Because he's not our enemy. God loves us. He loves us. He's not our enemy. And Jesus said, what? Do good to our enemies. Pray for them. You know, he come and meek and you know, I mean, that's what Jesus wants. And here, a couple more verses here. All my inward friends abhorred me, they hated me, and they whom I loved are turned against me. My bone cleaveth to my skin and to my flesh. You know what that, he just, skin and bone, that's it. He just shrunk it felt like his skin, I could almost, you know, when I read this, and God has gave me that, and I praise him for that. When I read Scripture, I can almost picture and see. I mean, he gives me that, you know, he just gives me like I can almost see Job and the shape he's in, and almost visualize. You know, God gives me that, and I thank him for that. Because, you know, that the one thing, if you can't visualize what Scripture says, it's hard to see. You know, and God help us all to visualize and know exactly, you know, what it means. But I can almost see the skin and the bones and his setting and everything. And listen to this. Yes. And this is where the saying comes from that we all hear all the time. Listen to this. And I'm escaped with the skin of my teeth. Ever heard of that? Many times. Man, I escaped by the skin of my teeth. Now, what does that mean? That was in Scripture. People wouldn't even know that. You know that? There probably a lot of people don't know that it comes from a book of Job. That if you ever say, "Well, I escaped by the skin of my teeth."
I've said it many times, and I never know that.
That's what I'm saying. Ain't that amazing? There've been a couple here in Job. There's another one. Well, I can't even think of what it was. We'd have to get back and read it. But there's another one that was close to that. Little sayings that we hear all the time. Escaped with the skin of my teeth. But in a way, you know, that is what that, I mean, we hear it as a saying, escaped by the skin of my teeth. But looking at Job, it could have meant that he might even lost his teeth. You know, he could this disease and Satan's put this on him. It could have made his teeth come, and all he has is gum, and that's why he called it the skin of my teeth. He didn't have all he had was what? Gums. That's it. Yeah. All right, we got one more class come up. I'm gonna go down because I'm gonna stop at verse 24. Said, "Have pity upon me." Now, what's he asking them? Have pity on me. Well, will help us to have pity on people. You know, we see them in. I do have pity. I feel for them, pray for them. People in nap packs, and if I see them doing something, going down the wrong road, I pity them. I know where they're heading. And that's what he wants to have pity upon me. Have pity upon me. He says it twice. O ye my friends, for the hand of God hath touched me. See, he never blames, and Satan brought this on me. He says the hand of God touched me. Why do you persecute me as God? See? And are not satisfied with my flesh. Oh, that my words were now written. Now listen to this. Oh, that my words were